willing to step up and lead myself first. I am willing to stand out as a leader who's worth following. And I am willing to lead others to reach their full potential. That was awesome! You've got to plan out the steps that you want to take. Be a leader that's worth following. Most people just accept their lives where they're at. They don't lead their lives to where they want to go. How bad do you want that dream you're after?
When I say I know firsthand how frustrating it is to manage some of those tough employees, and I realize the same thing as you guys. In order to make some massive changes in those employees, I had to make some massive changes within me first and get to know them and understand them. So I did exactly what you guys are doing. I went to seminars on how to deal with the tough employees. I read all the books on how to deal with the negative attitudes, and you know what I figured out? That there is just one thing that determines whether our employees are going to be mediocre or top performers. Just one thing. Let me tell you a little bit about Jim and Brad, and let's see if you guys can determine what that one thing is. You see, Jim and Brad both work for the same shoe company, and one of them's going to be moved up into management, so they're sending them both out to Africa to 2 remote villages, and they're going to see who does better in some shoe sales. So Jim gets off the plane, walks around the village, assessing all the needs of the people, picks up the phone after about half a day and says, hey guys, no one wears shoes here. Give me the next flight home. There's just no business. They're like, okay, Jim, glad you figured that out sooner than later. Well, then Brad gets off the plane, same thing, walking around the village, assessing the needs of the people, calls them after about half a day and says, hey boss, no one wears shoes here. You're gonna have to send more packages. There's tons of business. All right, so what's the difference between these guys?
Attitude.
Yeah, attitude, but who said perspective? Yeah, absolutely, Roz. Perspective is the one thing that determines whether an employee was going to be mediocre or whether they're going to be a top performer. Now, when I worked for Steve Wynn for one of his 5-star, 5-diamond resorts, he took me aside one day and told me something that changed my life forever as a leader. He said, Betsy, your perspective is your reality. Your employee's perspective is their reality, and oftentimes they're going to be a little different. You get them on board with your perspective, and guess what? You are going to be leading a very, very good winning team. I was like, great! All I have to do is get them on board with my perspective, right? My vision? Not always as easy as we think it is it? Absolutely not. Especially when they think and they act so differently than we do. So I said, okay, Mr. Wynn, how do I get them on board with my perspective? That's the key here. He said, aha, well, that's the next trick. You see, all you have to do is realize that a perspective is just a habit that they've developed over time. Now, if they have a negative attitude, they've developed the habit of having a negative perspective. If they have a positive attitude, they've developed the habit of having a positive perspective, right? So he said, you can't manage or change someone's perspective because that's their own reality. What you can do is manage and help change their habits. So there's 4 steps to helping an employee change their habits and getting them on your side, seeing your vision, and having them see your perspective. Now that first step is simply addressing the habit and the behavior that they have. We take them in private and we never ever want to address them as a person. It's always this behavior is affecting the group. And that's the second thing, is we want to talk to them about how their behavior is affecting our team. If they don't know why you want them to change, they're not going to make those changes, are they? So we're going to determine one thing right now. If you guys would do me a favor, I'm going to write down two habits or negative behaviors that our mediocre employees tend to have. One of them is going to be, let's say, being late. Anyone ever experienced any of their employees ever being late? I think we've all been through that, correct? So let me ask you guys something. With employees being late, what are some of the effects that this has on your team, on your management? How does this affect the productivity? And normally I'd break you up into groups, but in light of time today, let's just work together as a team and just shout them out at me. So being late, how does this affect your team? Productivity, so it's going to slow down productivity, right? How else does this affect your team?
Morale.
Absolutely. Morale. How does that affect your morale?
Well, it all depends on if it's addressed or not. I mean, if it's not addressed, then people tend to stop believing that it's really that important.
Absolutely. Morale. And that's like team resentment right there, right? When it affects your morale. How else? Give me one more thing that how being late affects it.
Customers. It can impact the customers.
Absolutely. It's going to affect the customers as well. All right. How about the second one? Let's go with complainers. Anyone know someone like this? Anyone sitting next to someone like this? The complainers are the people that no matter what you say, they're going to complain about anything and everything, right? You're like, hey, you just won the lottery, high five, woohoo! And she's like, yeah, but the taxes, right? There's always something, the reason they're going to complain. But how do these complainers actually, we call them negaholics, by the way, here at National, because they're addicted to negativity. How do they affect our group?
Is that a one bad apple thing?
One bad apple, so they're a bad seed, right? Bad apple, bad seed. They spread it throughout the, I'll put negativity in here. Negative environment. What else?
Waste time.
I'm sorry?
Time wasters.
Oh, they are. They waste tons of time by that coffee machine just complaining about everything, don't they?
Productivity.
And yes, productivity as well. So what I want you to do is look at this real quick. We've already said we have to address the habit, the bad behavior. We already said that we have to also address with them how it's affecting our team. Just by these two mediocre behaviors, look at what we're getting. Slow down productivity, your morale is affected, your customers are affected, there's a bad apple, there's a negative environment, there's time being wasted. All of this just from two mediocre behaviors. So would you guys agree with me that it's not only necessary to change these mediocres into our top performers because it's annoying to us, but it's crucial that we do it because it's affecting our productivity, our team, our whole environment. So the next step is to just sit them down and let them know your expectations and then let them know the discipline that comes along with it. So you're like, hey, Carl, you've been late. My expectations are that you're here at 8 a.m. just like everybody else. And if you're late, here's what's going to happen. There's discipline. Yeah, slap of the wrist. There's discipline involved in it. And then the next step, the very last step, is the one that most leaders miss. So this is what I want you to pay attention to. Encouraging those employees to create a new good habit within themselves. Would you guys agree with me we're all creatures of habit? And that it's sometimes very hard to change those habits that we've had. It's a process. Do me a favor real quick. Everyone link together your fingers and your thumbs. Link them all together, just like this. All right, if you have your left thumb, no, let's do your right. If you have your right thumb over your left thumb, raise your hand up high. Raise your hand up. Actually, stand up. Right thumb over your left thumb, stand up high. And look around the room at the other people that are standing up. So studies show, she's sitting down in the back, that's okay. Studies show, no, stay standing, stay standing. Studies show that people that place their right thumb over their left thumb, that habit, that you're actually a little bit more intelligent and smarter than the rest of the crowd. So hey, Steve's cheating in the back there. All right, who has their left thumb over the right? Stand up. That should be the rest of the room. It's wow. So this habit, you might want to high five your neighbor because the habit of putting your left thumb over your right usually shows that you're a little bit sexier and better looking than the rest of the crowd. So high five right there. All right, Carl. All right, now that we've had a little fun, let's come back and make a point with this. Bring your hands together again, your fingers and your thumbs. All right, now what I want you to do is link them the other direction. Unlink them and link them, just one finger down, link your thumbs and fingers. How does that feel?
It's not comfortable.
It's not comfortable. It's a little awkward. Yeah, awkward. I heard someone once say, it just feels really wrong. Try this one. Cross your arms. Now cross them the other direction. Yeah, this is fun. This is where everybody looks like they're doing the Macarena in here. Da-da-da-da-da. All right, so would you guys agree with me? It's not always comfortable making changes. So if we're expecting our employees to change their habits, we have to realize that it is a process. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, it's a little awkward, and it may even feel a little wrong. So when they do, it's our job to encourage them. Hey, Susie Q, you were on time today. Instead of saying, it's about time you were on time today, we want to look at her and say, Susie, thank you for being on time. I know you're developing a new habit of that, and I'm looking forward to you being on time tomorrow. It means a lot to our team, and it means a lot to the productivity here. Thank you for that. And we encourage them along the way. And in closing, just remember, maybe sometimes no one has ever held them to a higher standard until you came along. You have a chance to help change not only their status as an employee and who they are, but you have a chance to help change them in their lives. What matters most is how you see yourself.
If you need to breathe life back into your company, she's the next Tony Robbins.
Energy, her presence, all of it is just incredible.
To come in and inspire my clients and to make me look
That
good.
was so much fun. I want to make sure I have victors in the room. Let me hear you say Never ever let the limitations that others place on their own lives affect what you want to do.